Wednesday on Highway to Heaven, can Jonathan help a fellow angel who's courting his own widow? Then on Gimme a Break, Nell's having a big time in the Big Apple.
That's great.
Then on You Again,
My dad racing against William Shoemaker.
it's off to the races when Henry fulfills his sports fantasy.
Come home Wednesday.
Aloha, Twin Cities. Barry Zivan here with your chance to cash in on a January Hawaiian vacation and meet Magnum.
Hi, Guy.
Hi. Watch Magnum weekdays at 3 and win a trip to Waikiki. Cash in on 11 winners during Magnum from October 13th to November 21st. Qualify for the drawing. Winners send a postcard to Cash In on 11, Box 111, Minneapolis 55440. Watch Magnum to win and meet.
Okay, I'm not going to disappoint you.
Only one line of cosmetics is designed to keep you at the table instead of the powder room. Because only one line of cosmetics is designed to absorb oil and keep your face from shining through. Corn silk. Even our liquid contains the same unique ingredient that makes our powder absorb oily shine. So use corn silk for natural-looking color and coverage that keeps the shine off your face and you at the table.
The latest on the Bears and some baseball awards tonight.
Decision 86. The voters decide. A News 11 special report with live coverage from DFL and IR election headquarters.
Good evening. Welcome to Decision 86 and our coverage of today's election.
And NBC has already projected a winner in Minnesota's race for governor. No surprise, really. The network projected Rudy Perpich the winner at about 2 minutes after 8 tonight.
News 11 has its own research team that spent the campaign season gathering data to help project winners in the statewide races.
There are quite a number of people working to put it all into perspective for us, and that team is headed by Mary Stuckey, who's at the Projection 86 desk in the newsroom with the first of her reports. Mary?
Well, we're getting in some sort of projections here tonight. We commissioned these projections. They're based on key precincts throughout the state and a computer analysis of those precincts. As expected right now, Rudy Perpich is running ahead of Cal Ludeman, and he's running ahead of Ludeman even in strong Republican areas. That is stronger than was projected he would be running in those areas. News 11 has also commissioned a survey based on random telephone calls conducted over the last couple of weeks. It has an error rate of plus or minus 5%. Let's take a look at one of the things that we wanted to find out with that survey. We wanted to know where the votes were coming from. Let's look at St. Paul. St. Paul, Rudy Perpich expected to run 63% over Cal Ludeman's 29%. Remember that Perpich's primary opponent, George Latimer, is mayor of St. Paul. In Minneapolis, Rudy Perpich, 61% expected over Cal Ludeman's 24%. 4 years ago in the primary, Perpich lost Hennepin County 2-1. Quite a comeback since then. And on the Iron Range, Rudy Perpich's traditional stronghold, again expected 63% over Ludeman's 24%. In the Twin Cities metropolitan area, Perpich, 60% over Ludeman, 31%. Strong Perpich support, almost as strong in the metro area as up on the Iron Range. And in outstate or rural Minnesota, Perpich, 53% over Ludeman's 39%. These are some of the closest margins geographically that we've seen between Perpich and Ludeman. Perhaps because of the farm crisis, Ludeman, a farmer, had been pushing hard in that area. We wanted to know, after we wanted to know where the votes were coming from, we were curious. Who were women voting for? Who were men voting for? For women, Perpich, 55% of his votes came from women. Ludeman, 34% of his votes came from women. Men, 61% of the male voters came for Perpich and 31% for Ludeman. We don't see much of a gender gap. In other words, they have roughly similar percentages of men to women for each of the candidates. We'll have more in terms of projections. We'll have more in terms of our survey later on in our coverage. Back to you in the studio.
Interesting numbers. It's always a bit easier when you're already in office, isn't it?
It is all the time, it seems. Thanks, Mary.
I'll tell you what, as for the actual vote totals, here's how things stand right now. Let's take a look at some early returns coming in. We have Ludeman right there with 55%. Now, that is a surprise since we have already projected, or NBC rather, has projected Perpich to be the winner tonight. obviously. The vote totals right underneath each man's name right there. And of course, those vote totals will be increasing as the night goes along. We have our own system for gathering votes, and we're also using the Associated Press as well.
Those are slim numbers, 0% the precinct, so we really can't tell anything from that. What are the candidates themselves? Well, they are all watching the results very closely as expected.
We have a number of News 11 crews watching the candidates. Kevin McDowell is at the governor's mansion right now with the latest. Now, earlier you may have seen Kevin saying he'd been standing outside and he was freezing, but Kevin, now I understand that you actually went inside the governor's mansion and had tea with the governor. Is that correct?
Actually, coffee, and it was very good, Paul. Yes, no, we are outside here. Moments ago, we were inside talking to a very relaxed, very calm, very confident Governor Perpich. Right now, he's upstairs getting ready to head out to the Radisson Metrodome, where the DFL will be their campaign headquarters is right now. And then from there, he'll be flying north for another big celebration tonight and again tomorrow, a victory celebration. As you said, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we were inside talking to Governor Perpich, a very relaxed, very confident Governor Perpich, assured of his victory. He says he's excited about the upcoming 4 years. He wants to see a lot of projects completed. Exactly what projects he wouldn't be specific about. Voter turnout. Now, I asked him about voter turnout in that it was heavier than expected. He said that really didn't surprise him, that he heard it was going to be heavier. And it's all that much better for him because in this state, a heavy voter turnout obviously means his lead over Cal Ludeman will increase. He has not, he says, heard from Ludeman going over the podium with a fine-tooth comb. Apparently, since the dogs barked, that's where they're centering a lot of their attention.
Kevin, any of the authorities talked to you about this yet?
No, they're very busy at this point, John.
If I can intercede, I don't know if you can hear me, Paul.
We can hear you.
But we understand that as soon as the search is complete, they will be making some sort of an announcement as to why they decided to clear the room, whether or not it was a specific bomb threat call or what. So we should know more as soon as the search is complete.
Well, just when we thought there was no drama in the governor's race, this turns out.
Unfortunately, the wrong kind of drama.
Kevin, again, getting back to it, do you know, is Perpich at the Radisson Metrodome, possibly upstairs in a room?
Paul, at this point, we could only assume that he is because he left his mansion an hour ago, so he's probably somewhere in this building. Obviously, he's not going to be brought into the ballroom until all this is cleared up. They seem to be clearing it up at this point. I'm not sure if this thing has been resolved or not, but the police have moved away from the podium, as you can see.
Are the dogs, Kevin, still in the room?
They're still wandering around somewhere, Paul.
Yes, I see.
Yeah, there's a couple right here. I see one right here.
They are. It looks like they're going back to you.
This one's back on the...
Leave the dog alone, though. Just,
The dog is back on the podium. You can see it at home. It's behind the podium with the officer who's squatting down, now standing up. There's the dog.
Search continues.
Again, it's not the sort of thing you normally see at a political event, but he just gave him the all clear.
Yeah, he just got the all clear as far as the podium goes. We are just...
Let's listen in on the podium.
It looks like another announcement.
Everyone to come back on in and celebrate with the DFL and the governor tonight. Okay. We want to invite everybody to come on back in. Thanks to the good work of the Minneapolis Police Department. I think we should give them a good hand. Thank you very much. I'll tell you, nothing can stop DFLers.
Now?
Nor rain, nor storm, or sleet, or hail. Thank you very much for your patience. Let me just say, when you all get in, we just want to tell you what happened so you know. And
again, it appears that there is no concrete evidence as far as the bomb threat, and we are about to hear apparently why such a search was conducted, the dog search that you have just seen here at the Radisson Metrodome. So at this point, we are still waiting the arrival of Governor Perpich, and hopefully he'll be coming, and no bombs so far, and we'll let you know what happens.
Let's go up to the podium, Melissa, and listen right now.
Okay.
Tell you what
back to the podium.
We follow the advice of the Minneapolis Police Department, and also the governor had a concern. He wanted to make sure that we did not go forward the event until we just made sure the room was fine. It is. We appreciate your patience, and I want you to know that the governor is on his way now coming over, and they will be here in a few minutes, so we'll have a full ticket. But thank you for being so patient. And has it been a good night for DFLers? And let me just say that we're going to have the full ticket here in just a minute, and want to make sure that we give the governor and Lola and Mary Sue and the whole state ticket and their families a great welcome. Party a few more minutes. The governor's on his way, and we'll be here in just a second. Thank you again for your patience.
Okay, so again, it appears that this will turn into a victory celebration after all. We will await the arrival of the governor, which should be in a couple minutes, and then we'll come back. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Melissa.
All right, thank you, Melissa.
Big night for the DFL. Certainly not going to slow them down what happened just there.
We will be going back there, of course, when the governor does appear.
In the meantime, we're going to take a commercial break and come back with a special expanded edition of News 11. That's next. We'll be right back.
Plywood Minnesota's annual fall sale.
You betcha, Jared. Get free carpet pad when you buy carpet.
Yep, Plywood Minnesota has extended the free 3/8 carpet pad sale through November 23rd. Plywood Minnesota is featuring World Carpets, like Uptown, made with 52 ounces of Travera polyester, on sale at $14.99, completely installed.
Don't forget, fall sale prices on all ceramic tile.
Hardwood floors from $1.49. Plywood Minnesota's fall sale with free carpet pad.
Direct from the factory to you.
Welcome to Ribnick Furs, where you don't have to have $1 million to look like $1 million. At Ribnick Furs, you'll discover many fabulous fur values, the same quality and styles you would find at any exclusive salon. Discounted 20 to 40% below retail, like this exquisite Canadian raccoon or this elegant Lunar Rain mink. Many of our customers come from great distances just to shop at Ribnick Furs.
It's worth going a little out of your way for a Ribnick fur.
And now, a special edition of News 11. Decision 86. Election coverage from the Twin Cities' fastest growing news.
Good evening once again, everyone. I'm Paul Majors with John Bachman.
It has been a night of some surprises, including an apparent bomb threat at DFL headquarters, which has now apparently been cleared up. We are seeing a possible upset in the Scott County Attorney's race, and a night of the expected as well as in the governor's race.
And as NBC first projected tonight, Rudy Perpich is expected to win the governor's race in Minnesota. That projection came in shortly after the polls closed at 8 o'clock.
Let's take a look at our early returns for the governor's race, see just what the votes look like.
Take a look at those returns right now. Earlier we had 2% of the precincts reporting. Now we have 5%. And Perpich with a clear lead, 63% to 36%. Well, let's check in with our reporters now who have been following the governor's candidates.
Kevin McDowell is following Governor Perpich. He's at the DFL headquarters where there's been some excitement in the last half hour at the Radisson Metrodome. Kevin?
Somebody can hand me a microphone really quick.
Kevin has not yet got a microphone, I guess.
I was just putting on my jacket. I was relaxing a little bit after the bomb scare, and
Kevin, can you hear us right now?
Yes.
Paul, well, now that you have your coat on and you're dressed, it's been a hectic time there with the bomb threat and everything. Possibly difficult to get business done.
Turned out to be nothing.
Authorities might have taken the jacket off to check that, I suppose.
No.
Now, when we left you before the commercial break, they were saying that Governor Perpich would be down in just a minute. Is that about to happen? Do you have any?
No, they're looking at some results here at this point. The governor has not entered yet, Paul.
Jeanette Harrison evidently has some news for us from the Capitol about the governor.
I think we can make a quick change. Kevin, we're going to leave you right now. And Jeanette, what do you have an update for us on?
Paul, John, information is still trickling in very slowly here at DFL caucus headquarters. As you can see behind me, there aren't many numbers up there on that board. But both parties, as we said earlier, are watching about 20 key races in hopes of gaining the House majority this coming session. Governor Perpich also boosted spirits here a bit earlier with a brief appearance. He was, of course, elated about what he sees as his victory, but he insists that if DFLers gain the House majority tonight, it will be the people's choice. John, Paul, we will be watching as the precinct totals keep coming in, and we are well armed with pencil and paper, and we'll be double-checking those numbers. Back to you.
All right, Jeanette, thank you very much. Well, we are still waiting for Governor Perpich to show up at the DFL headquarters, which is the Radisson Metrodome tonight.
Joan Steffen is standing by.
Yeah, and she's at the Radisson South in Bloomington.
So we'll go to her.
IR headquarters.
Okay, I wish I had more exciting news to tell you. We're still waiting for IR candidate Cal Ludeman. We just had a message from the podium that he is expected momentarily. We've heard that message before. We'll probably hear it again before he arrives. We have, however, heard from U.S. Senator David Durenberger. He took the podium for a couple of minutes, gave a couple of words of encouragement, basically said that Cal Ludeman was among the best candidates he's ever campaigned for. He still believes he was the right candidate for governor. And we also heard from 3rd District Congressman Bill Frenzel, who basically said, hang in there. And that's what these people are doing. I understand that Cal Ludeman is entering the Great Hall right now. If we can get a shot of him entering the hall, obviously a warm reception for the IR candidate. He is a candidate who has inspired tremendous loyalty among his campaign workers. He's getting a show of that right now. And now the cheer goes up from the crowd. We want Cal, we want Cal. This is a crowd who doesn't want to give up. The projections are telling them that their candidate has lost the race. They are not willing to give up the belief that those numbers could turn around back in Ludeman's direction, although right now it looks pretty obvious that a concession speech should be in the offing. Let's go back, take a look, see if we can get a shot of the candidate again. There he is, working the crowd, working his way through the crowd. As I said, he's a candidate who has inspired tremendous loyalty among his workers. I was talking with one of the younger ones here tonight, and he said, after seeing some of the early returns here, he was afraid of the emotions that he would feel when he finally saw his candidate. And I think that's indicative of the feelings here. Cal Ludeman has evoked real feeling, a real feeling of loyalty among his people. Yes?
You were speaking to Cal Ludeman earlier today, and obviously you've been speaking to people who've been helping his campaign. Do they have an expectation of him running again in 4 years?
Well, I think perhaps the people have an expectation of him running again in 4 years, but I don't know what Cal's sentiment is right now. Obviously, his wife said to a News 11 crew today that she didn't even want to think about another bid in 1990. Cal Ludeman was a little bit more retrospect about it. He said that he was going to climb onto his combine tomorrow in Tracy, Minnesota, and that's as far as he's going to think. But he's a young man. He's only 35 years old, and obviously the doors have opened to him a bit this year. And I get the feeling that perhaps he wants those doors to stay open.
And a young man who seems to be very popular with the young voters, as we saw earlier in some of the News 11 projections that we've done, a breakdown of the age groups as far as how the vote total went. Very popular with the young voters, and surprisingly very popular with the older voters as well.
You followed him too, the convention endorsement. It has been a long trip down for him since then, emotionally tonight.
2 months of campaigning after a very big high, overcoming, getting the nomination at the convention.
And as we heard earlier, he was a man with very, very little name recognition early on this summer. He has done, he's had quite a showing here tonight for somebody who had no name recognition. He's worked very hard for the name recognition that he did achieve. Spent a lot of money on television advertising, spent a lot of time on the road, and it paid off in a substantial number of votes, apparently not enough according to our projections. He is once again working his way very slowly through the crowd. Everybody wants a chance to touch Cal Ludeman and to tell them how hard that they worked for him and how much they believed in him. We understand that he is going to be making his way to the podium shortly and talking to the crowd as a whole.
This would be his concession speech, one would expect.
Yeah. The mood does not sound very somber. I guess they probably expected this now in the last couple of weeks there, Joan.
Well, if they've been watching the polls, they know that the chances were very slim, but they did hold out a hope until the last minute that the pollsters were wrong and that the people were going to turn out who hadn't been polled, turn out in large numbers.
Even the latest IR poll had him down by something like 12%. Joan, as he makes his way up there, now we hear some shouting. What's that about behind you?
Let's see if we can get a picture. Where is he now?
We can see from our angle, Joan, that he's approaching the platform now.
And once again, the cheer goes up from the crowd. We want Cal. This is not a crowd who has dampened their spirit any. They still believe in their candidate, and they want to hear what he has to say.
And we should presumably be hearing from him in a couple of minutes here, in a very short minute. Here he is with Lou Freeman, the Attorney General candidate, who was being beaten quite handily by Skip Humphrey.
And up on the podium to meet him, Leon Oysted and the State Party Chairwoman Marge Grunis. And there he is. He's going up to the podium now. Let's go to the podium now.
Over here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Congressman, how are you? Thank you. Senator. How are you? Thank you. Thank you very much. I know you. I know this lady too. Thank you. All the way back there. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, and kids, Thank you. I'm here. This is good. Good. Thank you. Let me say just a few words. Don't let me say anything. Norm, how are you? Thank you. Hopefully this means you don't want me to concede this race, and I won't. Thank you. What this campaign has been all about is that dedicated people all over the state of Minnesota, when they decide they want to change things, they're able to do so. And until those votes are counted, until those people have a chance to have their vote recorded in this race, they need to know that Cal Ludeman's going to stand next to them, and that Dennis Shulstead is going to too. We want their votes counted. I need to say, as I look over this room, I remember all the kinds of campaign experiences that you and I have went through. We have challenged the future of this state. We have asked the governor important questions. We think that he needs to answer those questions whether he's elected governor or not. And we think we're the ones in the position to push this state into the future of what we need to do heading into the 1990s. Until this campaign is over, until those votes are counted, let's have a good time tonight. Let's look each other in the eye and say, stick in there, Minnesota. Let's go. Let's have some high-spirited fun, and I just want to say one final thank you, if we don't have a chance to do it before anybody leaves tonight, but don't leave early, that this family is the most unconditional, supportive family I've had. There's other family members all over this room, and there's a lot of friends, political supporters, friends of every kind. I see congressmen, I see United States senators, all who I consider the best friends that we need.
He's not ready to concede. Obviously, exactly what this crowd wanted to hear. He is not conceding. What he is telling us is this is going to be a long night. We're going to be here until all the votes are counted. So for now, back to you, Paul and John.
A beaten man who's at least going to make a party out of it.
I guess so.
That's right. He's in a brilliant man tonight, despite the results so far. Thanks, Joan.
I think right now what we want to do is go over to Kevin McDowell. He's at the Radisson Metrodome. Is that right?
There, yes. Kevin.
Yeah, Paul, John, it was a rather subdued crowd that just watched Cal Ludeman. I think a lot of people were expecting him to concede at this point, but he did not. The crowd is in here, obviously. They were cleared out earlier in the evening, a few minutes ago, when the Democrats received a bomb scare. They had dogs in here going through almost everything, every piece of equipment, and the podium, as you can see there. And that turned out to be nothing. Everybody right now is waiting for the governor. We have some activity up on the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got the greatest DFL chair in Minnesota. Do you agree? She's fantastic, incredible, and she's led this party, Ruth Esseloff.
Chairman of the DFL party, Ruth Esseloff.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think that we're on our way to just a resounding victory, not only in this state, but across this country tonight, and it's because the Democrats are setting the agenda for the future. Right now, I'd like to introduce to you a woman who has just done a fabulous job representing us in the Lieutenant Governor's office, helping move the Perpich-Johnson ticket forward for the next 4 years, and that is our Lieutenant Governor, Marlene Johnson.
it's wonderful to see all you fine, hard-working, successful Democrats out here celebrating tonight. Governor Perpich, because of the delays this evening, the governor went straight to the state office building to look at the numbers with the House caucus, and we're feeling very, very good about the opportunity to come back with a united party. And now the governor is on his way to the range to celebrate there with the people who have helped bring in one of the strongest margins that we've ever seen in Minnesota. So tonight, I want to say this is a great night for the Democratic Farmer Labor Party in Minnesota. Everybody is projecting that we're the winners. We don't know for sure yet, do we?
Apparently, Marlene Johnson has just
but I feel good.
told this crowd that the governor will not be here tonight. We're still checking on that. We hear that he is not in the building at this point, and indications are that he is already heading up north, which he had planned to do all along. Head up north to Hibbing, up north to celebrations, victory celebrations up there. And this may be the case that he is not going to be able to address this crowd tonight.
And they have spoken loud and clear that the direction that Governor Rudy Perpich has provided for Minnesota the last 4 years is the kind of leadership and direction that we need for 4 more years. So we're going to be back. But tonight the real celebration and the real thanks goes to all of you here.
So that is Marlene Johnson. She's speaking to this crowd, as we mentioned earlier. You may have heard her. She was speaking of the fact that the governor is on his way up north to Hibbing, where he had planned to go all along for victory celebrations up there. So he may, in fact, not be coming to the Radisson to address this crowd. We'll still have to wait and see. The last word, he is not in the building yet. So we'll be standing by here waiting for the governor or waiting for the word that he is not going to be here.
Well, it does sound, Kevin, like he is going up north. Now, he was scheduled to make an appearance at the Metrodome, and as you mentioned, when we were listening to Mr. Ludeman out at the Radisson South, you said the crowd there seemed to be somewhat disappointed that he did not come out and make a concession. Do you think perhaps that Governor Perpich might in fact be a little bit irritated with that and decide to move up his schedule and just take off up north?
That wasn't the Governor Perpich that I talked with earlier in the evening. He was very confident, and it doesn't seem to me that would be the reason for his not coming down here. We're not clear yet exactly why he isn't coming out. If in fact he isn't, we don't know that for sure yet. We're still checking.
It would have to be a disappointment for those gathered there tonight, but he has announced that he's not running for re-election, and I guess he has no cause to be on the 10 o'clock news tonight.
Yeah, you're.
Perhaps that's the
doesn't
reason.
need the airtime. Yeah. Well, he's got to be a happy man at any rate.
We'll be standing by.
Yeah, all right, Kevin. I assume the only man who might be happier tonight would be Kurt Carlson, who owns both the Radisson Metrodome and the Radisson South. He's managed to maintain a bipartisanship there and put money in his pocket at the same time. So he's got to be tickled with tonight's election. Coming up next on Minnesota, we're going to check on a controversial race in Scott County. That's on News 11, by the way.
That's right. Are we going to do that right now?
Yeah, we're going to take a break for a second.
Okay, we'll take a break and then we'll be right back.
Mm-hmm.
I need help fast.
Sure.
My old bank has been nibbling at my checking balance. It happened again last night. Service charges, high minimums, check charges, credit card fees. I couldn't even deposit at branches.
Oh. You know what you need? First Minnesota's money market checking. Low minimum, credit card with no annual fee, and free checks.
Oh. See? I'm trading in my old bank.
First Minnesota, the new bank.
More people are asking for the comfort of natural gas. That's why more builders are installing natural gas heating systems in commercial buildings, apartments, and condos.
Why gas? Because it's the lowest cost, practical energy available today. And because we project that gas will be available and competitively priced for the life of the structure.
People who demand comfort, control, and value ask for natural gas. Shouldn't that be the first question you ask before making a move? Natural gas, America's best energy value.
If you're in the market for a new car, your 88 very independent Chevy dealers want to point out how the new tax laws will affect you. Buy your new Chevrolet by December 31st, and 100% of the sales tax, which could be hundreds of dollars, is deductible from your 86 return. Buy that same Chevrolet after January 1st, and you lose it all. You have a choice, but you don't have much time. Get your Chevy today from one of your 88 very independent Chevy dealers.
This is the Noid. He loves to ruin your pizza. If you've ever gotten cold pizza, or squashed pizza, or pizza that just wasn't right, the Noid did it. But at Domino's Pizza, we avoid the Noid. So when you want hot, delicious quality pizza delivered in less than 30 minutes, Domino's Pizza delivers. One call does it all.
Welcome back, everybody. As we heard just a short time ago, Cal Ludeman is not about to
concede at this point.
Call it quits at this point.
Not.
Governor Perpich is heading up to where his home and heart are, up north, to thank the people up in the Iron Range who've always supported him and always worked hard for him.
He feels most comfortable up there. He really does.
You're absolutely right, John. What we want to do is just update you on the governor's race and see how those votes stack up right now. With 7% of the precincts reporting, Perpich with 61%, Cal Ludeman with 38%. But Cal Ludeman told all the people at the Radisson South out there, hang in there. He wants to see until all the votes are counted. He's going to stand by and
have a party in the meantime.
Absolutely. Enjoy it.
Look at the state races now. Diana's been following those.
That's right, John and Paul. No surprises in 3 of the 4 state races this evening, starting with Secretary of State. Joan Grow returns for a 4th term with 7% reporting right now. She's got a commanding lead, 72% over 28%. The election race to watch this evening was the state treasurer, and as we had projected all this evening, DFLer Michael McGrath winning over IR candidate John Drew. For state auditor, in the state auditor's race, Arnie Carlson is it's a dead heat with 8%, but we're projecting that Arnie Carlson will return for a 3rd term. And with the Attorney General's race, Skip Humphrey is looking to return for a 2nd term, and we have him leading with 74%, 24%, 7% of the precincts reporting. But this is not going to be the last of IR candidate Lou Freeman. He told Susan Weesey a little earlier that he said he was a bad cold, real hard to get rid of. Obviously looking to the future, he says he will be back, and he is considered to be one of the IR's future leaders. So that's how it stacks up right now with those results.
One would have to suspect that in a while, Mr. Humphrey might want to go after that Senate seat.
I would expect that.
And that might clear the way for Lou Freeman in the Attorney General's office.
A lot of people running in the election this year, I think, have designs 2-4 years from now.
Well, you got to remember they're all politicians. Yeah, they all have designs on something else a couple years from now.
We're going to check and see where some of these votes are coming from.
Mary Stuckey is at our projections desk in the newsroom. Mary?
Well, we have projections here, News 11 projections that are based on about 100 key precincts and a computer analysis of those results. Let's take a look at the governor's race. First off, we are projecting Rudy Perpich, the winner over Cal Ludeman, 60 to 40%. Secretary of State, Joan Grow over Don Koning, 66 to 34. Now, these are projections. We saw earlier small percentages of precincts reporting. These are projections. We are projecting McGrath over Drew, although we are still watching that race very closely. But at the moment, we are projecting McGrath. For the auditor's race, we're showing the incumbent Arnie Carlson over John Dooley, 58 to 42%. And for Attorney General, Skip Humphrey, 70% handily over Lou Freeman. Now, those are News 11 projections based on key sample precincts and a computer analysis of those precincts. We will have more from a News 11 survey conducted over the last couple of weeks and more projections later on in the newscast. For now, back to you, Paul and John.
Just so people that know, your projection shows 70% for Skip Humphrey. We just had some raw votes on the air that showed him at 73%. I think our projection is how we feel it will come out when all is said and done, right?
Right, based on a scientific sampling, not simply how we feel.
Yeah,
and I really want to point that out. And that is, if we're correct, and I believe we will be, that is closest to the way it will probably end up when all of those votes are counted.
Yeah, we certainly didn't take a poll of people in the newsroom of the building. We checked with voters, right, Mary?
Right.
We'll check how we do on all those projections tomorrow morning at
That'll be
sunrise.
interesting to see.
They'll have the final tallies, I'm sure. Go over to the county races now?
The Metro desk. We'll find out what's going on over there. Jan Mason and Dennis Stauffer.
We have an interesting race shaping up in Scott County for the Scott County Attorney's Office. Right now, let's take a look at those returns. 67% for Jim Truido to Kathleen Morris's 33%. I think most people thought that race would be a little bit closer at this point with 30% of the precincts in.
And in Hennepin County, we have Johnson with still a significant lead over his challenger, Mr. Heffelfinger, but that lead is a little narrower than it was earlier tonight, now with 9% of the precincts reporting. We'll be keeping a close eye on that. That's been a very vocal race, a very hotly contested race between the two men, and it appears to be tightening up as the night goes on.
Gail Pawaki and Bernie Grace have been covering those two races, and right now let's check in with Gail Pawaki, who's in shock at being the Scott County Attorney's race. No, I'm sorry, we can't go to that.
Apparently, Gail isn't available right now, but we will have reports on those races a little later on. John, Paul?
Yeah, we'll catch Gail a little bit later. I'll tell you what we can do right now is we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll brief you on some of the headlines on this election day.
And we'll check in with Paul Douglas. He's working tonight, too, isn't he?
I sort of forgot about
Yeah,
that.
he'll have
standing out in the backyard the whole night.
He will have our November-ish outlook from the backyard.
We can get the ice off it. We'll find out.
I'm meeting more and more farmers who've switched to Eradicane herbicide. Laura Neville, why did you switch?
I switched to Eradicane for the price, but I'm sticking with it because the control is better than Dual.
Eradicane users are getting better grass control at a better price than Dual or Lasso. Meet Jim Ferguson.
Eradicane outperformed Lasso and cost about $3 less an acre.
You can save money and get better control when you switch to Eradicane. Right, Tom Newgard?
Right. Look at the control I got for $3 an acre less than Lasso.
He's right, you know.
Oh, my wife's Annie.
Nice.
Sometimes you feel a little Mexican. When you feel a little Mexican, come to Chi-Chi's Mexican Restaurant for everything from traditional Mexican favorites to exciting regional specialties. Chi-Chi's, when you feel a little Mexican.
I'm about to show you how you can fight drafts and frosty windows with this window insulator kit from 3M. You just stick it in place from the inside, heat it with a hairdryer, and the wrinkles disappear. Airtight and clear as glass. Now you can see how cold it is out there without feeling it in here. Look for the 3M Indoor Window Insulator Kit or the new Outdoor Kit. Outdoors are in. Don't do it yourself without 3M.
When an urgent package leaves your hands, make sure the hands you leave it in can deliver. Express Mail overnight service from your post office delivers over city, over state, overnight, over whatever stands in the way. Over 97% of the time and climbing for about half what most others charge. £2, just $10.75. Express Mail overnight service. When we say overnight, we mean overnight.
A helicopter crash near Becker, Minnesota has claimed the life of one man tonight.
Andrea Shane joins us now with that story and some other news of the day. Andrea?
Well, Paul and John, the accident happened at around 5 o'clock this afternoon at the NSP plant in Becker, Minnesota in Sherburne County. The pilot was dropping off large metal ventilation ducts onto the roof of the Sherco 3 plant when he apparently lost power. NSP spokesman Sam McAllis explains.
People who were near the site said it sounded like the chopper was losing power, and at that point the helicopter pilot apparently let go of the load that he was carrying and tried to get out of the area. It appears that he hit the top of the conveyor system that will be carrying coal into the new power plant.
Federal aviation investigators are expected to be at the site tomorrow morning to try to determine the cause of that crash. It's been a horrifying day for a Florida candidate for Attorney General. Robert Butterworth is in seclusion this election night after Miami police found both his ex-wife and his 16-year-old son shot to death overnight. The bodies were found near their car and the handgun was also discovered. Police believe it was a murder-suicide. Freed American hostage David Jacobson is spending the night with his family for the first time since his capture. He hugged his children during an emotional scene in Frankfurt, West Germany today. It's the first time he has seen his loved ones in more than a year. Meantime, British envoy Terry Waite told reporters there may be more progress in freeing other hostages in Lebanon.
At the moment now, there are two people specifically in my sights. Terry Anderson and Tom Sullivan.
Wade's predictions have been correct before. Last weekend, he predicted progress in freeing at least one of the Americans held in Lebanon. And on Sunday, David Jacobson was set free. The crew aboard President Reagan's plane had quite a scare today. Air Force One took off from Los Angeles International, and some of the jet's wheels did not retract at first, and cockpit warning lights were on. But the plane did arrive safely at Andrews Air Force Base this afternoon, and the President and the First Lady are watching election returns at the White House tonight. Tonight, students at Minnetonka Junior High are closely watching the outcome of today's races. They held their own election today at school, complete with secret ballots. Each student in every 8th grade social studies class cast their vote today. And then this afternoon, math classes counted up those ballots. And when it was all over, students voted for incumbents in every statewide race but one. And they picked Cal Ludeman as the next governor of Minnesota. Tonight, as our month-long series on education continues, we take you to two schools honored for excellence, earning them federal grants. Winona and St. Louis Park High Schools have been teaching new techniques, and the government thinks it's worth investing in. You'll find very few notebooks and pencils in this classroom.
The different examples that you gave.
What you will find is a lot of communication between students and hands-on experience. This is a radio and TV class at Winona High School, and a perfect example of something called the Pioneer Program, a program the federal government granted this school $40,000 to develop.
Is it difficult for us to talk when we know that there's a camera focused on us?
Teachers offer guidance, but that's about all. Students take the initiative. In turn, they become aware of the techniques it takes to learn. Soon, students at Winona will be as active in their English, social studies, and foreign language classes as they are here.
That should sum it up for now. This is Gage, WK, K-Hawk TV, out.
How it like the light, how it gets lighter, you know?
Yeah, the lights, light and dark.
Students helping students. That technique applies at St. Louis Park High School, too. These people are writing research papers by using a computer and their classmates' input.
Foreseeing danger.
It's a way of teaching developed by Barbara Smigala, an English teacher at St. Louis Park High, a teacher who made some very interesting observations. Students remember more and they do better on tests if they work together, and they're more apt to revise their work if they have a computer. So Smigala is showing other teachers how to use the program in their classroom, and with her $40,000 grant, hopes to, among other things, give students at this school a whole new way of writing those dreaded research papers. And tomorrow, the story of two more schools that are trying to make learning a little easier. Our series will continue with a look at St. Paul Central High School and Junior High School in Osseo, and that is tomorrow. Paul and John.
All right, Andrea, thanks very much. Now, how many days has Paul Douglas been standing out in the backyard?
Probably seems like a week to him, doesn't it?
He's out there somewhere right now with the weather forecast. Paul?
I have my 10:30 stubble out here. Hi, Paul. Hi, John and Andrea. I have a projection I'm not sure you're going to like, a rather ominous weather projection for Thursday with 100% of the computerized weather parameters in. We've been studying them for the past hour or so, and it looks snowy. I think much of Minnesota, north and west of the cities, will see the first plowable snow accumulation on Thursday. Probably a cold rain right here in the cities, but north and west of a line from Duluth to about St. Cloud to Redwood Falls, there is a potential for more than 2 or 3 inches of snow, maybe enough to shovel, maybe enough to plow. Again, the real threat is going to be north and west of the cities, something we're going to have to watch very, very carefully. Okay, let's check out and see what today looked like. We had a high this afternoon of 43 degrees, a low of 22, no precip. There's your sunrise and set. In the backyard right now, clear and 33 degrees, a south breeze at 9 miles an hour. The dew point 25, the humidity 72, and the barometer now falling. Loop 11, you can see we were sandwiched in between storms today. One very soggy storm sloshing off to our south. Another storm system passing off to our north, grazing northern Minnesota with a little bit of light snow. We want to check the latest weather map, and you can see the high that donated a beautiful election day weather-wise. Winds are turning around to the southwest. Moisture and heat is surging northward, and it is setting off a pretty good smear of clouds over northern Minnesota. Most of this troubled weather is going to slide off to our north. 73 now in the city, 77 in Miami. This is the storm that could produce a cold rain, possibly laced with snow across much of Minnesota. Super radar, you can see that smudge of wetness passing off to our south. Another area of precipitation just to our north. We want to zoom in, give you a closer look. It is snowing right now, International Falls. There may be some icy roads over the Minnesota Arrowhead, well north of Bemidji. No problems, though, expected close to home. The map tomorrow is going to show a cool front just to our west. Temperatures quite mild, upper 40s, low 50s. Enjoy. This storm is going to cause some problems on Thursday, especially north and west of the cities. The forecast for tonight does call for some patchy clouds, 28 to 33. And then for tomorrow, not too bad. A shower possible in the morning. Enough afternoon sun for a high close to 50 or 51. Rain or wet snow Thursday. The best chance of snow coming north and west of the cities, 42. Some flurries on Friday, 36. Saturday, some sunshine likely with a high of 37 degrees. It's nice to be standing on flat Earth once again. Somebody once said that mountains are Earth's undecaying monuments. That may be so. It's not the case with the Matterhorn. The Matterhorn is decaying, it's crumbling, it's falling apart. And the combination of loose rock, altitude sickness, and bad weather makes it a very serious climb. An adventure that should not be attempted without the help of a professional mountain guide.
Blistered feet and muddy boots tell the story. 12 painful days, over 100 miles of trail, gasping in the thin mountain air.
Is it over yet?
There will be only half as much oxygen on top of the Matterhorn as there is in the valley. Altitude sickness could turn our mountain adventure into a nauseating and potentially life-threatening ordeal.
Can for hours always the same rhythm, huh?
Yeah.
And not stopping every 5 minutes. Huh?
Herr Richard Lehner is a Swiss mountain guide. For about $350 a day, he'll risk his life to make sure I don't become a statistic.
You come right behind me.
Yeah.
Small steps. Small steps. See?
Today is my final exam, a climb up the Riffelhorn. If I pass this test, then and only then will my guide take me onto the Matterhorn.
Look, you see that you can walk nearly without holding, you see?
It was like learning to walk all over again.
Up with the left hand. That's it, yeah. Knees not too close to the rocks.
Yeah.
This is a long way from the backyard.
Minutes later, we reached the summit.
We made it.
Made it, yeah.
Yep.
Congratulations.
But my practice climb is far from over. Going down will be even trickier.
It's 39 degrees and snowing on the Riffelhorn. This is supposedly summer. Going down is where most of the accidents occur. Number one, you're exhausted. Number two, your knees hurt. Number three, gravity is working against you. This is where most of the climbers get into trouble. Going down the mountain, not up. Well, Helena, what do you think?
Now I would think you get ready for the Matterhorn, huh?
Okay, good. Tomorrow, the climb.
Sadly enough, many would-be climbers get off the train, they see the Matterhorn, they want to climb it without any formal exercise or practice or training, and they also try to scrimp. They try to save money by not hiring these professional mountain guides. Some of them make it to the top, but on the way down, if you get 10 feet off the main route, you can hit loose rock, and it's all over. John and Paul, a mountain guide has not been killed on the Matterhorn since 1961, or anyone using a mountain guide. We were happy to learn that. That's why we hired 3 mountain guides. We'll use them tomorrow to actually make the climb.
Now, while you were there, 5 people were killed trying to climb the mountain. Were they without guides?
They all were without guides, and it was an eerie sight. As we were practicing, as we were training, you could hear the helicopters hovering the Matterhorn looking for bodies. And it was an eerie, it was a macabre situation.
That was
all
in
of those,
just 10 days, wasn't it? 5?
Over 10 days, 5 climbers lost their lives. None of them had guides. They tried to go it alone, and they paid the price.
There's a lesson.
Well, I got to tell you the truth. My idea of a climb is like a walk up to Knollwood Mall.
Mine too now.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thanks, Paul. When we, well, we're going to go over to the county
Go over to the
desk,
Metro desk right now with Janet Mason and Dennis Stauffer, folks.
In Scott County, an upset is in the making in the race for county attorney. Jim Truido has 67% of the vote. A 2-to-1 lead over incumbent Kathleen Morse, who's come under fire for the past 2 years for the way she handled some 24 sexual abuse cases.
And in Hennepin County, The attorney's race is right where it was when we left it before. As far as the percentages are concerned, 56 to 44%, Johnson over Heffelfinger. And right now we have Gail Pluwacki in Scott County following that race there. She's waiting for us to go to her, so let's go to Gail right now.
Dennis, Janet, as you said, we at this point have Toledo ahead about 67% to 33%. And it is kind of a surprise to people. What you see behind me here are people waiting for the votes to be tabulated. All of the precincts are not in yet, and everyone was waiting for the major precincts to start coming in. Now the major precincts, the Shakopee precincts, the New Prague precincts are coming in, and we're finding that Jim Toledo is ahead in those precincts as well. So some of the Morris supporters here are beginning to worry and are feeling fairly disappointed at these results. Dennis, Janet?
Gail, have you seen any sign of Kathleen Morris?
No, we have asked if she's going to be here tonight, and at this point her supporters say she may come later, but that she's been gone for quite some time today, may be appearing on some cable shows tonight, but they don't expect her to show up here to talk to the press. So we're not expecting we're going to have a chance to get some reaction from her.
Okay, thank you, Gail Pluwacki and Shakopee. Let's check in now with Paul and John.
All right, thank you both very much.
Thanks, Janet. When we come back, Tom Reither with the latest on two football superstars.
You betcha, Doug Flutie. The Bears are expecting miracles from that guy, and Joe Montana back from back surgery. The question is, can he still play? News 11 Sports is next.
Budget Power, the home improvement expert, shows how quality actually costs less during the Decorama sale. Get the clean, fresh, classic styling of Troy Track Lighting. All styles, shapes, colors, and sizes are sale priced. Troy Track Lighting gives you the modern versatility of putting the light where you want it. Save on all Kohler bathroom lamps. Kohler's unique and stylish designs and bold colors give distinction to any bath. In your kitchen, create a stunning statement of style and flair with Kohler kitchen sinks. Shop the Decorama sale at Budget Power, the home improvement expert.
There's only one thing worse than undercooked roast beef, and that's overcooked roast beef. That's why Hardee's uses the meat thermometer to make sure every roast beef sandwich is juicy and tender. Taste one now. Get a big roast beef, large fries, and a medium Coke for only $2.59. Finding a better deal would be tough, no matter how you slice it. The hot roast beef meal from Hardee's.
Is it possible to produce electricity and keep the environment sound? NSP has spent more than $300 million since 1970 to make sure we do both. During that time, we've reduced coal plant emissions by 70%. At the same time, we've increased the amount of electricity we produce from coal. Producing electricity and keeping the environment sound. At NSP, we don't think we have to sacrifice one to have the other.
The most music, the best music, and a better variety make KDWB the music leader. Start your morning with Buck and O'Connor.
Tell you what we're going to do before we get to Tom Reither into sports. We are going to go to the Independent Republican headquarters.
Joan
correct?
Steffen is standing by, and she has a report for us.
Joan?
Thank you, John and Paul. I'm standing here with the Independent Republican candidate, Cal Ludeman, who just moments ago decided not to concede the race. Tell me, Mr. Ludeman, why did you decide not to concede when all of the figures seem to be telling us the race is over?
Well, the Cal Ludeman campaign has always been one of real grit and relying on real people. And until we have enough real votes counted, we're not going to let anybody down. Certainly not the hundreds of people here that have worked so hard in this campaign.
How long a night is it going to be?
Well, obviously, I would think in another hour we'll have a whole lot better information about where the votes are and which way they're going. I need to know better where the 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 7th congressional districts are headed and have more confidence about where we really are before I'm going to say anything about giving up on these folks.
Can you tell me something at this point? Would you have done anything differently in your campaign knowing now what you know now?
Well, that's a hard question to answer. Obviously, we wish that we'd have been in a position, either with the governor's help or George Latimer's help or anybody else's help, to be in a position to show contrast quicker. But we had to work on name recognition, and we had to build confidence amongst what should have been a better unified effort at the beginning. It took a while, and they're all feeling better about Cal Ludeman as a candidate, but we should have had that level of confidence by the primary.
Have you just laid the groundwork for another campaign here?
Well, that certainly wasn't the intention. Believe me, I wanted to win this race. I thought we have a lot to do for this state, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure this state is run better. But that doesn't mean I have to be a candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Ludeman. And now we'll be sending it back to John and Paul in the studio. John and Paul?
Sort of leaving all of his options open right
Yeah,
now.
well composed tonight, handling himself well in defeat.
Very much so. Well, it's time now for sports with Tom Ryther, and he's here to talk about the wonderkind, Doug Flutie.
As a matter of fact, well, you guys, you've handled all this, all the problems very well. Now, the biggest problem I have, my chair is slipping down slowly. If I hit my chin on the counter, can you just kind of pull me back up here a little bit? The Chicago Bears have joined the world of mere mortals, having lost 2 of their last 3 games, and after losing to the Rams last night, they sent for some help. Once again, quarterback Doug Flutie has been called front and center. He admits he is not totally familiar with the Bears' offensive game plan. Flutie has looked good in practice, and with Jim McMahon nursing a bad shoulder, Flutie could see some action Sunday at Tampa Bay.
Since the day I came in, I didn't know what my role would be. I still don't know where I fit in, but I'm just going to make myself the best quarterback I can possibly be. And when the time comes and the opportunity arises to go out and do the best job I can, I'm not going to push myself any harder because I don't think I can.
And then there's quarterback Joe Montana of the San Francisco 49ers. With him, they can play with anybody, but without him, they become an average team. The record now 5-3-1. Despite what appeared to be a career-threatening disc problem in his back, doctors say he's okay now, and that he may play Sunday against St. Louis.
I'm not worried at all about physical contact. I didn't get hurt with physical contact, and if anything that I'd be worried about would be something else, another disc or something might go doing something similar. But
he is a great one, and also on the subject of injuries and great ones, Walter Payton of the Bears suffered a dislocated toe last night against the Rams. The toe is not broken. He is doubtful for Sunday's game at Tampa Bay. Well, there are some NHL wars going on the schedule tonight as we check the action on one of those games. Action between the Islanders and Washington. As we see right now, Pat LaFontaine with a pair of goals. Be at the right place at the right time. He got the rebound, popped it in. He has 7 on the season now. Mike Bossy had a pair of goals. Let's go to the scoreboard and check them out now. As we see, the Islanders won that game over Washington easily, 7-1. Philadelphia did the same thing to New Jersey. Vancouver and Pittsburgh 2-2. Mario Lemieux with a goal. He now has 17, one ahead of Dino Ciccarelli, and Winnipeg over Quebec. Despite his team being branded as losers, John McNamara came into Boston and made the Red Sox winners. They did not fold in winning the American League East title, and then the pennant, and they came so close to winning the World Series. Well, John McNamara today named by the baseball writers as the American League Manager of the Year over Texas manager Bobby Valentine. And here's someone who certainly deserves an award, or perhaps a warm blanket, Paulette Bosella, who is literally living atop a billboard at 7th and Park Avenue in downtown Minneapolis. She's doing so in an effort to drum up support for the Strikers' season ticket drive. Will not come down until she's sold 1,000 ticket packages. Today, some of the Strikers players joined her for lunch, and you can call Paulette for ticket information at 867-5747. And what a crummy thing for Tino Lettieri to do. Would you know he stole her lunch and ate it there on that billboard? Not really. The North Stars are sending Don Beaupre through tests, trying to determine why his energy level is low. The North Stars will be at Chicago tomorrow. And finally, did you know that goalie Glenn Hall played in 502 straight games from 1955 to 1962? That is an NHL record. Now, he may have faced danger in all those games, but not nearly as much as me on this chair. I've made it this far.
That's not your regular chair, buddy.
No,
Yeah.
it is a
little low. Should we make him feel a little better?
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, let's just do this. just so you feel like a big guy. Coming up, more election coverage on Decision 86.
Yeah, News 11 will be right back.
Yeah.
This is America's #1 rated standard-size snow thrower, and nothing else comes close. Well, the Toro throws up to 15 inches of wet snow effortlessly. So does this. The Toro cleans right down to the pavement. This does too. The Toro throws snow a long way in either direction. And finally, the Toro 521 fits nicely in the garage.
Save up to $120 on Toro snow throwers.
All right! Come on, guys, come on!
Rocky picking up the loose
Move the puck! Go! Okay, nice move, nice move!
Loose for Larmer.
Hit off!
To Savard.
Hit
Secor gets center up. Here comes
C-chord with Savard. Wait a minute! What's happening? Someone has crashed through the glass. Picks up the puck. Sidesteps a defenseman. He shoots. He scores!
Minnesota North Stars hockey.
Unbelievable!
Live it.
Last year was good. I like winning, and I love New Orleans. Now people keep saying, hey, how'd you do it? Well, if I told you, it wouldn't be a secret now, would it? Hi, Pete.
Taco, Taco Light, Taco Bell Grande. Only from Taco Bell. The cure for the common meal.
So, this is where I learned to be a K102 disc jockey just like you, huh? Let's see, you play good country music and lots of it, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Well, you don't talk much. You hardly say a word. Hardly a word, huh?
No.
You play FM country, stereo music, good country music, isn't that right?
Yep.
Well, you don't talk much. You surely don't talk much, huh?
No.
Gee, how do you do that? I have no idea how you do it. I don't think I'll ever be able to...
It's what we don't say that counts. More music, less bull. K102 FM.
DFL party is holding its celebration over at the Radisson Metrodome, and that's where Kevin McDowell is right now.
Yes, Kevin, we heard earlier that the governor was headed for the Iron Range. Is that still the latest word?
Well, John, what we've heard is that the governor, obviously, he never showed up, and he does not intend to show up tonight to address his supporters here in the Twin Cities, simply because, and this is what we've heard from official sources, there was a bomb scare earlier, as you are well aware. That delayed things. It delayed things enough, apparently, that he would have gotten to the Iron Range a little too late for his celebration up there. That is where he usually spends victory nights, and so he wanted to make sure he got up there, and because of the bomb scare and security problems that might develop, he decided to continue on up north, and that's exactly what he did. Who handled it tonight, basically, was Marlene Johnson, who introduced all the winning candidates. The biggest applause tonight went to Attorney General Skip Humphrey, a big winner tonight, who was introduced as Senator Attorney General Skip Humphrey, possibly denoting the fact that he may or may not run for the U.S. Senate in 1988. His speech to this crowd, well, you couldn't tell. He was talking about the race in '88 and how we have to address national issues. And so it's up in the air right now whether, in fact, he does plan to run in 1988 for the U.S. Senate. At any rate, a rather disappointed crowd, but happy because of the big DFL wins here at the Radisson Metrodome.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I were a betting man, I would wager all my money on the fact that he will run for the Senate in '88.
I think everybody anticipates that. Certainly laying the groundwork right now, feeling around, seeing what the reaction will be.
Absolutely. Well, it's time now to go to Diana Pierce. She has some congressional races for us. Di?
Well, John and Paul, again, we're expecting the incumbents to return this evening. So let's check in for the first time in the U.S. House District number 3. IR Representative Bill Frenzel, who's been in Congress longer than any other member of the Minnesota delegation, is running for a 9th term. His challenger is DFLer Ray Stock of Deep Haven. Frenzel is leading with 72% of the vote to Stock's 28%. This note, Frenzel has been popular as a moderate, and voters in the 3rd District have consistently returned him to office with more than 60% of the vote. Turning now to the 4th District, Bruce Vento leading, again, an incumbent, 76% to his challenger, Harold Stassen, with 24%. In the 5th District, we have Martin Sabo, the incumbent, leading his challenger, 75% to 24%. In the 5th District, we have Jerry Sikorsky. He's seeking a 3rd term. Looks like he'll be returning for a 3rd term. By the way, the mythical Lake Wobegon would be found within District 6. This is in case you didn't know. And in the 1st District, Penny is probably returning for a 3rd term, 74% to 26%. That's not improbable. He is returning for a 3rd term. And finally, Vin Weber is expected to return for a in District number 2, Vin Weber is expected, well, although we're seeing 50% here right now, he is expected to return for a 4th term. The incumbents are returning. We'll keep an eye on this particular race as it goes. Now let's go out to Susan Wiese, who's at IR headquarters, who has the latest for us. Susan?
Diana, as you know, in Congress, usually the incumbent wins 9 out of 10 times, and with me is independent Republican Congressman Bill Frenzel from the 3rd District. Congressman, you've been in Washington longer than anyone else.
In the Minnesota delegation, anyway.
And again, it's almost certain, isn't it, that the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 7th districts are going to be ours again tonight?
I think that is true. It looks like all the incumbents in Minnesota are going to be reelected to the House of Representatives.
If nothing else, from the results that we are getting in the congressional races, is it maybe a referendum on Reagan's farm policies?
In Minnesota, I think it's a referendum on the incumbents, and the incumbents seem to be being approved by the people. I think that Minnesotans are concerned about the farm policies, they're concerned about Central America, concerned about a lot of issues, but they don't seem to have a level of concern that makes them turn on the incumbents. At least it hasn't worked that way tonight.
I think in Arlen Stanglin's race, we're going to be watching closely the margin, right? What will margins tell us in Stanglin's race and in Vin Weber's race?
Arlen, I believe, has run 6 times, and except for the last election, he has seldom won by more than a few thousand votes. And he is a Republican winning consistently in a Democrat district and always winning with difficulty. I think this year will be no exception.
As you look ahead to another 2 years in Washington, right now Congress has made some difficult choices about federal spending, but what about deeper cuts? Won't those be hard decisions for you?
Congress always has difficulty slowing down spending. We really haven't done it. What we've done is slowed down the rate of increase a little bit. Next year it'll be back front and center. I believe that no matter who controls the Senate, reduction of spending is going to be our biggest priority. And I think we're going to do a little bit better job than this year, but not near as well as we should.
Thank you, Congressman Frenzel.
Thank you very much.
3rd District Congressman Bill Frenzel. Now let's go back to Diana in the studio.
Thank you, Susan. And we just heard Bill Frenzel talking about the tough race in District Number 7. Why don't we check that out right now with Colin Peterson and Arlen Stanglin. Stanglin is leading 53% to 47%. Stanglin is going to return for a 6th term. And in the U.S. House District Number 8, it's Oberstar and his rematch from the 1984 election, former IR State Senator David Rood of Aiken, and Oberstar returns for a 7th term with an overwhelming 71% to 29%. By the way, gentlemen, this note, in the 3rd District, we just heard from Bill Frenzel, but his opponent, Ray Stock, decided that he did not want to take any chances. So over the weekend, he moved from his Deep Haven home, which is in the 6th District, to a new house in Minnetonka, which is in the 3rd District. There's nothing in the law that says he had to do that. He just thought that he'd be on the safe side. Apparently, he hasn't helped, but he thought he'd be on the safe side.
Yeah. One other note in that 7th District race, Stanglin has had many close races, but he always seems to manage to come out on top. It looks like it again tonight. Yeah.
33,000, I believe, or 33,000 votes in the last 1984 race. So he squeezed by.
Thanks, Dan. Well, some of the biggest races in the Midwest tonight are those just over the state lines.
Kirsten Lindquist is at our regional desk with more on what's happening in Wisconsin, the Dakotas, and Iowa. Kirsten?
Paul and John, we want to bring everybody up to date right now on some races in Wisconsin, in the Dakotas, and in Iowa. We're going to start with the Wisconsin races first. In the governor's race, incumbent Democrat Anthony Earl is leading with 276,662 votes to his challenger Tommy Thompson's 261,429. In the Wisconsin State's U.S. Senate race, incumbent Robert Kasten is trailing behind his Democratic challenger Ed Garvey. You can see the numbers there. Kasten with 45% of the vote, Garvey with 55% of the vote. Moving now to the Wisconsin Attorney General's race. The Attorney General's race, there is an upset in that race. Incumbent Democrat Bronson LaFollette is trailing behind his Republican challenger Donald Hanaway. LaFollette was seeking a 6th term despite some alleged unethical activity while in office. Going on now to the Wisconsin Secretary of State office, we have incumbent Democrat Doug LaFollette, no relation to Bronson, winning at this point against his challenger Republican Cliff Krieger. In the Wisconsin State Treasurer's office, incumbent Democrat Charles Smith has a handy lead, a strong lead over his challenger Republican William Lorge. In the Wisconsin congressional races, District Number 3, incumbent Republican Steve Gunderson is leading with just a minute number of votes in at this point. He's leading over his Democratic challenger Leland Mulder. In the 7th Congressional District of Wisconsin, incumbent David Obey has a very healthy lead right now over his Republican challenger, Kevin Hermening. David Obey is seeking his 10th term in Congress. We're going to go on now to some of the races in the Dakotas, starting with South Dakota. South Dakota voter results are not yet in here to News 11. However, NBC News is projecting a win for Republican George Mickelson over his Democratic challenger Lars Herseth. We do have some results from the South Dakota Senate race. We have Tim Dashley, the Democratic challenger, ahead of Republican incumbent James Abner. In that race, that's expected to be a very tight race. In North Dakota now, we have results in that race. Democrat Kent Conrad is leading in his race against incumbent Republican Mark Andrews. We'd like to move along now to Iowa. In the governor's race, another tight race here. Incumbent Republican Terry Branstad has a slight lead over his Democratic challenger Lowell Junkins. Another tight race for the U.S. Senate in Iowa. I should say that is not very tight. Charles Grassley is expected to win handily over his challenger John Rorick. NBC, in fact, is projecting a win for Charles Grassley in that race. And finally, in the 6th Congressional District of Iowa, we do have a close race between Republican Fred Grandy of Love Boat fame. He played Gopher on that TV show. He's winning by he's trailing rather by a slight margin behind Democrat Clayton Hodgson at this point. And of course, we will be following the results of all these races and bringing you up to date on them throughout the evening. Gentlemen?
All right. Maybe Fred Grandy should think about some Return to the Love Boat there.
Yes, sequel maybe.
All this evening, we've been getting some insight on this election from the newsroom.
Mary Stuckey has a little more insight on our governor's race from the projection desk. Mary?
Well, as we've been reporting all evening long, we have Governor Rudy Perpich being elected handily over his challenger Cal Ludeman, and we wanted to know why. So News 11 over the last couple of weeks did a scientific telephone survey talking to expected voters and asking for their opinions on various issues. We wanted to know first, who's best at creating jobs? Rudy Perpich, again, 57% over Cal Ludeman. Both candidates made jobs an important part of their campaigns, but Perpich evidently grabbed that issue for most of the voters. We also asked who would make the tax system more fair, Rudy Perpich or Cal Ludeman. Again, Rudy Perpich, 51% to Cal Ludeman's 31%. The government role in the farm crisis. For those people who said the government should get more involved, Perpich, 70%, Ludeman, 20%. But for those people who said that the government should be less involved, Ludeman beating Perpich among that group, 49% to 44%. Now, one of the most important things, perhaps the most important thing, is what we call the Minnesota way of life. There seems to be one factor that influences more voters than any other. We asked voters, which candidate for governor do you think personally better represents the Minnesota way of life? 51% said Perpich, 30% Ludeman, and 19% said that they didn't know. This single factor, an intangible, I grant you, seemed to be the key factor in this election. And it pretty much mirrors the results, with Rudy Perpich winning over Cal Ludeman. Evidently, gentlemen, back to you, evidently, Rudy Perpich seemed to best represent the Minnesota way of life for most voters.
All right, Mary.
That is interesting. It's fascinating.
The old Minnesota way of life.
Yeah.
Wendy Anderson on the cover of Time Fishing.
That's right.
I think that's
it.
it.
You know, campaign managers now are already gearing up.
Sure.
Just along that line.
Yeah, Lord knows how it'll work. Well, right now we're going to go over to the Metro desk with Dennis Stauffer and Janet Mason. They're over there right now with the results on the more results on the Hennepin County Attorney's race. Is that right?
That's right, Paul and John. We want to bring you up to date on that race right now. Let's take a look at the numbers if we can for just a moment here. We have incumbent Tom Johnson, I know, leading. Tom Heffelfinger, the challenger. Johnson, a two-term incumbent. Heffelfinger, assistant U.S. attorney. The margin is now 55 to 45%, with 22% of the precincts in. Johnson obviously rolling up a fairly sizable lead. And News 11's Bernie Grace has been following that race. He's now at Johnson headquarters.
We're now here at the Independent Republican headquarters, Dennis, and I'm with Tom Heffelfinger. the IR candidate who is challenging Tom Johnson for that race. You saw the numbers, Tom. What do you think? You're not saying it's over, are you?
Oh, not over by any means. This has got a long ways to go. I'm very encouraged by the numbers that are coming in. We're doing better than we expected in an area which is, quite frankly, my opponent's stronghold. I think it's going extremely well. I'm very encouraged.
We're going to check back with you later tonight.
I'll be here a long time.
All along, you've campaigned on the fact that you say Tom Johnson doesn't prosecute tough enough. Do you think, regardless of the outcome of this race, do you think if indeed he is then reelected, that's going to change how he handles that office?
Well, let me put it this way. A number of friends of mine in the defense bar have commented to me in the last 6 months that it's amazing how tough a prosecutor Mr. Johnson has become since March 21st when I announced I was running. I'm expecting Mr. Johnson has learned something from this campaign.
This is not over, but indeed, if you are not elected, what? Do you return as a federal prosecutor?
Well, first thing I do tomorrow is I rake my leaves. I haven't mowed my lawn or raked my leaves since August, but...
Even though you're up all night, you're going to have to save some energy for that, right?
You're darn right.
Again, with me is Tom Heffelfinger, the IR challenger to Tom Johnson for the Hennepin County Attorney's race. Dennis and Janet, back to you.
Thank you, Susan. Now we will go to a report from Bernie Grace on the man who's leading in that race, Tom Johnson.
Johnson 627, Heffelfinger 310.
The early returns show incumbent Hennepin County Attorney Tom Johnson rolling up a sizable lead against challenger Tom Heffelfinger. But most of the early returns are from Minneapolis, and that's where Johnson has to do well in order to win. Already, Johnson's talking like a winner.
But I think that our office had a chance to be put under the magnifying glass for the public to see in terms of the quality of our work, and I think it withstood that examination very well.
While Johnson has run up a healthy lead in Minneapolis, he remembers 1978 when he lost many of the suburbs. He expects to do the same thing tonight. But like in 1978, he expects the Minneapolis vote to carry him to victory. In Minneapolis, Bernie Grace, News 11.
I'm sure it's going to be a long night for both Tom Heffelfinger and Tom Johnson, and it's going to be a long night for us because we're going to be following 14 different counties, both here in Minnesota and in western Wisconsin. So stay tuned. Now let's go back to John and Paul.
Well, if Heffelfinger does lose, he'll have a lot of time on his hands, so maybe he'd like to do our leaves as well.
I was going to say, mine's pretty bad shape right now.
Yeah, we can write him a letter. We'll find out. Well, we're going to wrap it up for right now and join the network to give you some national election coverage, but we'll be back.
We're going to be back midnight, so join us then.
Aloha, Twin Cities. Barry Zivan here with your chance to cash in on a January Hawaiian vacation and meet Magnum.
Hi, Guy.
Hi. Watch Magnum weekdays at 3 and win a trip to Waikiki. Cash in on 11 winners during Magnum from October 13th to November 21st qualify for the drawing. Winners send a postcard to Cash in on 11, Box 111, Minneapolis 55440. Watch Magnum to win and meet.
Okay, I'm not going to disappoint you.
When your child gets a cold or an allergy, you get a lot of advice.
Give him some garlic.
You gotta sweat out a cold. A lot of advice.
Vaporize him.
But the best advice is what doctors have said millions of times. Take Dimetap. Dimetap in non-prescription formulas brings proven relief. So take the advice of doctors and pharmacists.
The garlic worked.
And take Dimetap. The best advice you can take.
What's the name of your new liquid bleach?
I don't use liquid bleach.
But your sweatshirt looks so white.
And your elephant didn't fade like my clown.
Oh.
I don't use liquid bleach. I found a new detergent.
A new detergent?
Right, new Oxidol with faster dissolving crystals with color-safe bleach. Look, 2 berry-stained shirts. Guess which one Oxidol whitened and which liquid bleach did? Look at the faded color.
What's your new liquid bleach? She doesn't use liquid bleach.
Try new Oxidol. It whitens without the worry of liquid bleach.
No cling nightgowns. Jump! No cling skirts. Jump! No cling to most anything. Jump! 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 Bounce for no cling things you can't wait to jump into. Jump! Feel the touch. Jump in! You are the one so smooth and free around me. Jump! 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 Bounce for no cling things you can't wait to jump into. Jump!
You like the dog, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. If the dog's got the same name. We've gone from that period to what I would term now sort of the information period. I mean, we're really saying more about our own candidates and also about the opposition.
And I think the standard is if you tell the truth and if your commercials seem fair, then I think that's okay. And what we're involved in now is a kind of an electronic dialogue in the campaigns that's become much more sophisticated.
Dick Wirthlin, do you see all of this as an electronic dialogue?
Well, if it's a dialogue, it surely isn't a very, very clear one in terms of some of the issues that have dominated what's happened in this country over the last 2 years. I think that the negative advertising, in a very real sense, reflects the fact that the Reagan agenda really didn't have a great deal of contrast in terms of the kinds of campaigns that were run. There were candidates that tried to go the other direction and run positive campaigns. Many of those were not successful. And it's very clear that the negative campaign does leave a mark. And I think the temptation will be in the future to, again, attack a candidate of the opposite party early and often, but I don't think this serves the American people very well.
Some of the things that were not discussed in this campaign generally, taxes in the deficit, arms control generally, aid to Contras, South Africa, trade, really the staff of life every day in the American Congress for the past year.
Yeah, but I would disagree. I think that all those things were discussed in various campaigns. I think the problem is trying to discuss some subjects like that in 30 seconds. And our problem is that all we have really available to us is 30 seconds on television. If we had a minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, we might be able to go into more issues at greater depth.
Let me ask you about another point, both of you, if I may. Have we really reduced the role of the American political parties to a very, very tiny and almost insignificant place in American politics? It's really now a campaign of the candidates and his or her campaign managers?
The interesting thing about that is that I think the parties missed the technology as it went by. And now we have people in the parties, Brock in the Republican Party when he was chairman of the Republican National Committee, Tony Coelho now, who has established himself as the sort of the czar of the technology in the Democratic Party. I think the parties are now coming back in and taking control of the technology. They're learning how to wholesale the technology. And when they do that, then I think they become really much more part of the process. But what we're learning tonight is, I think the American political process has moved from parties and ideology to campaigns and candidates.
Do you agree with that, Dick Wirthlin? Is the Republican Party in this country Ronald Reagan, and once you get past him, not anymore?
I really don't believe that's true. I agree with Bob that I think the future indicates an enhanced role for the party, primarily as an institution that can vendor the technologies of polling and getting out the vote much more effectively than has been the case in the past. And I think many of the candidates are going to be more dependent on the party. This last election, it was the Republican National Committee and the Congressional Campaign Committee that did allow the president to speak to the American people for 5 minutes about what the choice was, at least as seen by the president.
Thank you very much, Dick Wirthlin and Bob Scar. Before you raise your finger, you want to say anything more about what's going on in Alabama?
I want to know whether Wirthlin thinks they've won in Alabama, because I think they haven't won that one yet.
What do you think, Dick Wirthlin, in Alabama? We have been projecting that Jeremiah Denton will be reelected. What do you think?
I think Jeremiah Denton will be reelected.
All right, it's 1 against 2. We'll see.
Okay, Bob Scar gets on the record here tonight. Speaking of commercials, we have some of our own just for you right now.
I just lost 2. Hey, Chief, we need an 800 number.
We need more lines.
I think we need help.
I think we need a fax machine. I've been waiting for those.
New phones. I think we need help.
Today, what a growing business needs most is finding out what it needs most. From long distance to phone systems to telemarketing, AT&T has the answers.
No, but we need good stuff.
I think we need help.
Call our small business specialists. We can help.
Oh, a headache now. Anybody seen my extra strength Bufferin?
Yeah, my shoulder hurt. And Kim took it. Sore leg.
They all know how good my Bufferin is.
Extra strength Bufferin for Kim's legs, John's shoulder, Debbie's headache. It goes to where you hurt fast with an extra strength dose of relief.
Curtain going up.
And I'm ready.
For headaches and a lot more, extra strength Bufferin, also in regular strength. Join the makers of Bufferin in supporting the American Heart Association. Look for our coupon in Sunday's paper on November 9th.
Satellites need maintenance and refueling, so McDonnell Douglas is helping NASA plan a space station that will be an ideal satellite service center. Communities asked for peace and quiet, so we developed a tail rotor that cuts our helicopter's noise in half.
Aerospace plane designers need a low-cost way to test ideas. Our simulators evaluate flight systems before they're built. We are creating breakthroughs in aviation, space, and information systems. We're McDonnell Douglas.
My dentures look great.
You've just had your dentures professionally cleaned.
But how can I keep them looking this way?
With this.
Effordent?
Professional Strength Effordent. With a powerful blue action formula that removes stains, kills germs, and cleans away plaque. Leaves dentures clean, even in between.
Now I get a professional looking clean every day.
Effordent for a professional looking clean, even in between. Effordent is accepted by the American Dental Association.
President Reagan returned to the White House tonight after about 17 states that he covered altogether for U.S. Senate candidates and 3 other states that he covered for governors and for people who were running for Congress. He's been very active on the campaign trail since Labor Day of this year, but it was not a very happy homecoming for him tonight because he now faces a Democratic majority in the United States Senate. And NBC News Chief White House correspondent Chris Wallace is at the White House tonight. I guess you can't call it a house of horrors, except in a political sense, they're not feeling very good about what's going on around there, are they?
Tom, I'll tell you how bad it is. Most of the senior White House officials have turned out the lights, locked their offices, and already gone home to bed. But before they left, they already began talking about what life is going to be like starting next year with a Democratic Senate. And the tone was really set by one top official who said Ronald Reagan still has 2 years left on his contract, and he plans to stay on the job. And in fact, they've already begun making plans for a high-profile president in the next few days and weeks to show that Ronald Reagan is still very much on the job. Tomorrow he's going to speak to his senior political advisors, a speech that we will be able to cover and start laying out the agenda for 1987. I think you're going to see lots of pictures of Mr. Reagan working with his cabinet on his new budget, on his State of the Union. They are going to do everything they can to fight the image of Ronald Reagan as a lame duck. As far as their tactics for the new Senate, they are saying that initially they're going to try and play a very conciliatory game, work very much as they have with the Democratic majority in the House and try and build coalitions. And in fact, if you look over the record of the last 6 years, in fact, they have scored some successes with the Democratic House. But having said that, the realists here are saying they expect it to be very political, very confrontational. They expect real battles on a host of issues that are very near and dear to the president's heart, like Star Wars and aid to the Contras, various judicial appointments, defense spending, and other budgets spending, and they expect it to be a highly political time with the president oftentimes having to go over Congress's head and appeal directly to the American people. One other point I'd like to make, Tom, I heard you and John Chancellor talking earlier about the president's batting average tonight, and it seems to me perhaps you were a little bit generous. In this last week, the president went to 9 battleground states, 9 of the toughest states, and so far he has lost 6 and won 1, with 2 states, California and Idaho, still outstanding. So that isn't even a very good batting average in baseball.
Thanks very much, Chris Wallace, for bringing us up to date on all of that. In the House of Representatives, the president also faces a larger Democratic majority. This is the composition of the House now, as we now know it this evening, based on what has been going on around the country. Obviously, all 435 seats were up tonight. And going into tonight, the Democrats had 253 of those seats, and the Republicans had 182. We'd like to show you now the composition of the House of Representatives. Well, we're going to show you some of the people and how they've been doing. Helen Bentley was running against Kathleen Townsend, of course, in Maryland, and she is going to be reelected, Kathleen Townsend. Her brother, of course, is Joe Kennedy III, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, losing in her first bid for re-election or for election to Congress in Maryland. In Mississippi, Mike Espy is leading. He would be the first black congressman from Mississippi. He's running in the 2nd Congressional District. In New York, Bella Abzug has failed in her attempt to come back. The winner there is Joe Diaguardi. Bella Abzug, the loser to Joe Diaguardi in the 20th Congressional District in the suburbs of New York City. And in Indiana, a rematch. Frank McCloskey leading Richard McIntyre 52% to 48%. 75% of the vote is in so far. As you'll recall, this was a very close race. I think McCloskey won by 4 votes the last time. They had a protracted argument in the House of Representatives. And Joe Kennedy, son of the late Robert Kennedy and Ethel Kennedy, has been elected in Massachusetts from the 8th Congressional District, a rich seat indeed, vacated this year by the retiring Speaker, Tip O'Neill, occupied at one time by the late John F. Kennedy, Joe Kennedy's uncle. John?
Well, you know, the Republicans aren't going to do so badly in the House of Representatives today, and based on the returns that we've had so far. Since the end of the Second World War, the party in power, that's the Republicans this time, has lost an average of 30 House seats in midterm elections, and that is not going to happen this time as far as we can see as of now. Just a few seats. In fact, the Republicans won fewer seats in the 1984 election with Ronald Reagan's landslide than they might have. The Democrats picked up a lot of seats in '84, and so they had the strength of going into this, which is why they argue that the 6-year itch isn't working. And in our polling today with the Wall Street Journal, we found that the latest figures on party identification among the 38,000 people we polled, 31% said they were Republicans, 36% Democrats, 26% independents, and that is how the electorate stands today, Tom.
Thank you very much, John Chancellor. If you'll just watch very carefully now, we're about to show you the Democratic winners that we have tonight. We've got this on a world record track, so stand by. Here we go. These are the Democratic winners that we have seen so far tonight in the United States Senate. From Arkansas, Dale Bumpers, re-elected. In Colorado, Timothy Worth, elected first term. Chris Dodd, re-elected in Connecticut. In Florida, Bob Graham, defeats a first-term Republican. White Fowler does the same thing in Georgia. Daniel Inouye wins in Hawaii, Democrat. Alan Dixon in Illinois. Wendell Ford in Kentucky, fully expected. John Breaux in Louisiana, safe seat for the Democrats now. And Barbara Mikulski in Maryland. In Nevada, Harry Reid, congressman, defeats John Santini. In North Carolina, Terry Sanford wins. In North Dakota, Ken Conrad picks up a Republican seat. John Glenn keeps his seat in Ohio. Ernest Hollings, keeps his seat in South Carolina. Tom Daschle wins a Republican seat in South Dakota. And Patrick Leahy wins in Vermont, a Democrat going back to Washington. Brock Adams picks up a Republican seat, the one that belonged to Slade Gorton in the state of Washington. That's where it stands at this hour. This is Decision 86 on NBC.
Sunday, a baffling murder case.
What's going on here?
On live TV.
He shot him!
And only Raymond Burr
I didn't murder Steve Carr.
can prove the man who fired the gun was not the real killer.
If you were going to kill someone, would you do it in front of 40 million people?
An all-new Perry Mason, Sunday.
Use Reynolds Wrap to clean.
To clean?
Just line your pans with Reynolds Wrap, and all your cleanup is a snap. When you cook with Reynolds, you will see your greasy mess is history. Look how easy your life can be when you cook with Reynolds Wrap.
Some plastic wraps seem to have a mind of their own. So get the one that cleans where it's supposed to clean. Get Reynolds plastic wrap before yours gets out of hand.
Marcel Marceau answers the question. Is there a softer tissue than puffs? No matter how you say it, puffs is always the softer way to blow.
This is a special edition NBC News Digest. Here is Ann Rubenstein, NBC News.
Good evening. One election recap for you. The Democrats have taken control of the Senate as a result of Tuesday's election, and we have other news of the day to report as well. The unfolding story of efforts to free the American hostages in Lebanon has a curious twist. The Speaker of Iran's parliament reports that former National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane was sent to Iran for talks. When McFarlane and 4 other Americans arrived in Tehran, apparently in September, they were arrested, held for 5 days, and expelled. Reports say McFarlane arrived on a plane with military equipment that Iran purchased from international weapons dealers. Reports say McFarlane was expelled because of American hostility regarding the Iranian Revolution. At first, the White House would not comment on the reports, but later said the U.S. still refuses to sell weapons to Iran. There has been speculation all along that Iran might be used in the hostage situation because of its influence with the extremist groups in Lebanon. Meanwhile, Terry Waite, the Anglican Church envoy, says 2 more hostages may be released soon. And former hostage David Jacobson had a joyous reunion with his family. George Lewis reports from Wiesbaden, West Germany.
The Jacobsons had been together for an hour and a half when they showed up on the hospital balcony. But the emotions were still running high. His daughter Diane had given him a happy surprise. She and her husband Jake are expecting a baby in less than 2 months.
I need money. I don't have a place to live, but I'm easy to keep. I'm well trained. I can live at 6 by 6 square.
Terry Waite, the Anglican church negotiator who accompanied Jacobson here, said the other 2 Americans held with him may be the next to come out.
Two people specifically in my sights, Terry Anderson and Tom Sullivan.
David Jacobson said he'd like to be here to see some of the others standing on the hospital balcony as he did today. But there's no telling when that may occur. George Lewis, NBC News, Wiesbaden, West Germany.
As President Reagan was flying back to Washington Tuesday after his campaign swing in the West, a warning light on Air Force One indicated a hot landing gear break. The pilot left the landing gear down in flight to cool it, and as the president's plane landed, there were no problems. As expected, captured American flyer Eugene Hasenfuss admitted guilt at his trial in Nicaragua, hoping for mercy from the court. Jamie Gangel has more on the story.
My name is Eugene Hasenfuss. Mi nombre es...
In a calm, deliberate voice, Hasenfuss took the stand, and as his wife and lawyers watched, he gave his account of how he was shot down over Nicaragua.
After opening my parachute, I watched the aircraft I was in spin on fire into the ground.
With the gun stacked behind him in the courtroom, Hasenfuss freely admitted he was running arms for the Contras. He did not defend his actions, but he said he did it because he had lost his job as a construction worker. Asked by the court whether he would like Nicaragua to return him to his wife and children, he quietly answered.
Yes, I would.
Jamie Gangel, NBC News, Managua.
South Africa's President P.W. Botha announced a shakeup in his cabinet Tuesday. Law and Order Minister Louis Lagrange, whose job was to keep a lid on protests, moves to another job now. And Information Minister Louis Nell is out. Several younger people were moved into deputy minister positions. It was a tragic election day for Bob Butterworth, Democratic candidate for Attorney General in Florida. His ex-wife and teenage son were shot to death the night before. Police say she shot the boy and then committed suicide. A nurse was killed and 3 people wounded in Richmond, Virginia Tuesday when a man walked into a prominent doctor's office and started shooting. The gunman then shot himself and died 4 hours later. He was not a patient of the doctor's, and the police don't know of any connection between him and any of the people in that office. The Census Bureau reported Tuesday that more than a fourth of American families with children are headed by single parents. Among black families, that figure is 60%. The DuPont company showed off a new plastic it said will be as big as nylon someday. The company calls the product Aerolon and says it will replace steel, glass, and other materials used in cars, in appliances, and in sports equipment. And finally, if you're looking for a good excuse to beat a speeding ticket, do not try hot coffee. A Minneapolis salesman told 3 judges that the pain of spilling hot coffee on himself caused him to hit the gas pedal. The judges all ruled against him and said he shouldn't have had that coffee in his car in the first place. I'm Ann Rubenstein in New York. Good night from all of us at NBC News.
Hi, I'm Grant Tinker, president of NBC. Last May, I sent Late Night to California. Some people objected. They said it would cheapen the show. I said, hard cheese. I'm Grant Tinker. I get whatever I want. Well, my plan produced the highest ratings in the history of late-night television. So obviously I was right. And those who doubted me, well, they don't work here anymore. So tonight, I'm sending Tom and the gang to the land of the rising sun. I'd like to go along, but I'm doing yard work at Cosby's place. Anyway, have fun.
Go, Yan, San, Ni, Ichi.
From Tokyo,
where the skyscrapers are just so many punching bags for monstrous atomic mutations. It's Late Night with David Letterman. Tonight, Kenny Rogers, baseball player Randy Bass, and game show producer Masahiro Takahashi. Also, a look at new Tokyo gift items and Ask Melman Sam. And now, a man who was made an honorary stewardess on the flight over, David Letterman.
Allegato! Allegato! Konnichiwa!